Okay, so part two. What we are going to be going over now is GDP per capita. GDP per capita. Capita in this case is person. So it's GDP per person, right? If there's 10 of us in a room and we have $100, we know that there's $100 in the room. If you wanted to figure out the dollars per person, you take our $100 divided by the number of people, and that gets you $10 per person. That's all GDP per capita is. Okay. So it's the total amount of money divided by the total number of people. So let's look at those numbers. Okay. What you're going to see here is that the United States is not even in the top five. It barely cracks the top 10 right here. Okay. What you see is this country, Qatar. You might be thinking, Qatar, what is Qatar? I've never heard of that country, or maybe I've heard of that country a little bit. Well, Qatar is this oil country. It's got all this oil underneath it. It's in the Middle East. And the thing about Qatar is that nobody lives there really. It's like a couple million people. So they've got all this money from oil and hardly any people. And so their GDP is really high, right? Because they've got all this money and not a lot of people. And then we've got all these other countries. Similarly, we've got the United Arab Emirates, we've got Kuwait. Those are both big oil companies. I could get into the details about why Ireland is here. All you got to know is it's because rich people like to hide their money in Ireland. Singapore is here because all of the companies in Asia are based there, or all the Western companies have their Asian uh, corporate offices there. And it's a tiny country. It's literally a city on an island. So look at this. So the United States, $67,000 per person is what GDP per capita is. Now, let's be clear. That does not mean that every person has $67,000. That's not what that means, right? This tells you nothing about how much money the rich have and how much money the poor have. It doesn't tell you anything about that. All it tells you is how much per person. So now I want to go back to those two countries, India and the United Kingdom, because you might be thinking, wait, isn't like the United Kingdom like a rich country? Isn't it basically like the United States, but they speak funny? Well, let's see. The United Kingdom is 27th. They have $48,000 per capita. So every single person, if you divided it, would have $48,000. That's about what we're talking about. Okay. Now, what about India? Oh, all the way down at the bottom at number 116 is India. And for every Indian citizen, there's about 9,000 American dollars. Now, again, some Indians are very wealthy. Some Indians probably in their bank, they probably make $100,000 a year. And some Indians are much less wealthy. In fact, there's about 150 million Indian people who make less than $2 a day, right? So again, this tells you nothing about who has the money. This tells you nothing about who has the money. All this tells you is how much money there is per person. The reason why India is so much smaller is because there's about 10 to 15 times as many people that live in India as live in Britain. Now, you go down to Guatemala, and Guatemala is right here next to India. And you might be thinking, well, wait, how is that possible? Because India's got this big old economy, but Guatemala's this tiny Central American country. Well, the reason why is because although Guatemala is small overall in terms of its economy, it's also got much, much fewer people there. So I hope this is helpful. And there's going to be a couple questions about this. If it's not, please let me know. Okay, hope you're doing well.